since our last conversation when we just talked, you were talking about language, and then that turned me on to when I was talking about the big three, and I was like, mine is music, movement, and food, and you were just like language, and I was like, oh, this is great. It's because language has, there's plenty of, there's at least three things in language we could talk about. So I would love to just kind of ask you a couple questions on that focus.
Very good. Very good. No, that works.
Will you introduce yourself to us?
Yes. Betty, my name is Bettie Spruill, and I have a coaching school. And in the coaching school, I started the coaching school like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll give you the narrative, which happens in language. This is why I love language. Mm-hmm. Because the stories we tell ourselves, the narratives we tell ourselves that have been passed on, since the beginning of humankind, mm-hmm. all happen in language. Mm-hmm. So it's not what happens necessarily that counts, but it's what we say about what happens that has the most impact. And so I started a school teaching these principles. And one of the principles had to do with the phenomenon of language, mm-hmm. and realizing that many people don't even know that they exist in language. It's like we're like fish in water. Yeah. And so when you become mindful of the language that you live in and the mm-hmm. language of narratives and even the language of music, then you begin to have more agency. You have more power with which to create. So that's when I go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say with music and with language, it's these things mm-hmm. that can be, you can learn the theories to get you out of jams, but at the same time, when you actually get in a conversation that starts flowing, like, it's kind of like you do a lot of work before and discover yourself, but really what it comes down to is you're doing it to be able to get out of your own way.
And have what we call flow. Mm-hmm. I was recently introduced to two violin players, mm-hmm. not through music, through what do you call it? All these apps that tell you about music. Someone said you got to listen. You got to listen to these two guys because they've taken classical music and hip hop, mm-hmm. and they're playing, and it's absolutely beautiful. So they've taken the language of music, and combined them, and mm-hmm. made a new language almost. But I think about that in terms of language, but because they had to have the language of music to even play classical music, mm-hmm. and then the language of hip hop, and then there was an infusion. So I think that's how life is.
It's funny because I was talking to some people in the tech world, and I was explaining to them how cultures die, and it's same way art dies. It's you do one thing and you keep it there and you never branch out. Meaning anytime any culture or ecosystem exists inside a bubble or an echo chamber without diversity, it'll end up dying.
Yes.
And that's how art has flowed for centuries is, you have your violin and you're walking the earth and you come across some people with drums, and next thing you know, the ecosystem is thriving. And especially when you've done the work and you've done enough work to appreciate other people that have done the work, and now it's a celebration, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And it's knowing the language, and the other part of it is language. We don't have language. Language has us. That's how I like to talk about it. So it's shaping, it's creating, it's and when we can learn the fundamentals of language, like there's business language, there's music language, there's language in terms of a medical language. But if I don't know the language of music, right, I can listen to it and enjoy it, but I can never become a creator of it.
Right.
And so what I look forward to and what I found in my own life was that by having language, it's taken me around the world, and not just the words of language, but language itself. And the, I'm going to say my capacity to immerse myself in different language allows
Right.
me to be shaped by the language.
What changed? Okay, so what changed in your life? Because it's like, we always have the path, stuff, then self, then purpose, right? And we always have our moments of just trying things out, and it's weird haircuts and all the other stuff, and then we figure out who we are. But then, what got you into language? Was it a moment when you were telling yourself too many stories, or did you have a mentor, or did you have that aha moment?
That's very good. When I was a little girl, I used to speak a lot, up in the church and at different meetings and stuff. And I loved the spoken word. And when I
Okay.
listened to some speakers, it was like, oh my God, did you really say that? And it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
creation for me. This mood. So then I studied sociology, and I studied
Okay.
psychology. And then I encountered ontology. And ontology is the study of being. And in that, they reference language quite a bit.
Right.
So I started
How are
to
you?
study language.
Okay, so one of the things that really tuned me into this, because I just released a course on kind of another side of mediation, and it's that we won't get into that. But what I was thinking is when you mentioned language, and then I was like, well, we're so in this place now, and so many of our meetings and things are not only held virtually, but they're actually off camera and just on the phone these days. They're so often in an email. So actually, the study of language is more important now, because so many of our conversations we're not in the room with each other, and so much of our communication is nonverbal, is body language. But then when we're choosing the words for an email, like to read one of my emails would just be a nightmare for you. If we really had to go back and forth over and over, you'd be like, stop saying stuff and stop using 5-line metaphors to, but yeah. So what do you see as changing in this work?
Well, what's happening in terms of the languaging of language? And I find through my mentor and teacher, Fernando Flores, that I studied with, he studied with a guy named the body of work of John Searle, who was a philosopher out of Berkeley, and another guy named Austin. But they said, if you look at any place in the world, there are 5 things that are happening that has to do with language. And they said language is action. And when you can distinguish the 5 things that are happening, I mean, there's other stuff going on, but these 5 distinctions can have you listen, because that's the power of language too. It's just not speaking, but it's to the listening of the listener. So let me say, so they said, anywhere in the world, when something is happening in terms of language, people are promising, they're requesting, they're asserting, they're declaring, or they're making an offer. And when you can begin to listen at either in the written, when someone has written something, or when people are speaking, then you can navigate better. Because let's say that if I'm reading something that you've written, I got an ongoing conversation going on in the background. And my conversation can be filled with assessments, which are assertions. This guy, what's he talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's this and he's this and he's this. Or I catch myself and then I go, now what is Matt really saying? What is he asserting? And you are asserting something. You're asserting something about yourself, about the world, about the company. So when I can begin to listen to it as an assertion, because assertions aren't true, they are not the truth. It's some way that you are viewing the world. And in your world view, the world can only occur the way that it's occurring.
Right.
So when I can listen to your assertions, I go, now, he has some evidence to support your assertions. And I start to look for the evidence. That is if we want to be in relationship with each other in terms of having something to happen, because language invents, it does not describe. It generate, it creates the world, and it's creating the world in the listening of the listener to which you're speaking. That. So then I listen, what are your assertions? And then are there any requests in there? When I read your, if I read your email, what are you requesting? What action are you requesting that I take as a result of reading this email? Is it to inform? Okay, that'll be okay. But do you want me to take some action? And so I
Right.
listen for that. And what are you promising? And then with the promises, so then declaration, which is in terms of you, if when you declare something in language, it becomes a space of possibility that wasn't there before. And in that space of possibility, then I can take action that I couldn't take before because there was no space in which to take that action.
Okay.
So I'm listening for something all the time. I'm never not listening. Am I listening to, like, one of the pieces that I work a lot with people on? People think their opinions and their judgments really matter. They really do. They go through life thinking their judgments and opinions really matter.
Yeah.
And that they are assessments. Then I say, now what request do you have? Because a request creates the future. What future what future can we build together? Which is what I believe now, Matt, in terms of the world. That's never happened before as we know it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who said, we are in this together, building a world together. We were always doing it, but it looked like kings and queens were doing it, and not like we were in on the design and the building of worlds. And so and that happens through language. Not, what I mean, not language like stand alone, but when you and I first met, how we got here today, it was through a languaging of commitment, which there were requests, promises, and now here we are speaking, and all that happened in language. It didn't happen, through us sitting around imagining what was in your head, or you imagining what was in my head. It was this time today, and I apologize for not being here on time, which is also a part of language, right? It was a broken agreement, a broken promise, and if
I judged you so hard.
I know you did. But you know what? If I did that over and over and over again, what would happen? We wouldn't have a relationship.
Yeah.
But I can say, I apologize. I didn't take good care of not that I need to justify it, but I apologize. And then I can say, and my promise to you in our relationship, not that won't happen again. I won't go that far. That's it.
You are selling a house right now. It's I'm cutting you some slack. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But now in language, you see the thing about trust. Unless there's trust, you cannot have a workable relationship.
Yeah. It's funny you say, so, it's like, I grew up, I'm an artist, and, I was playing music, and then I was a chef, and I do, television, and everything has to do with creating a language. And even when my last job, when we were training these stunt guys, it was, you don't really know what's going to happen. It was you're speaking of language. And so we didn't really know what was going to happen because a lot of our directors, a lot of the people on staff didn't really speak English, right? So the idea is we needed a language of movement, and then we needed to go to these people, and then whatever they did, that kind of spoke this other language. And it was interesting because there were so many languages being spoke at the same time.
Yes.
And we all became so close. But then the funny part about it is there is this other moment where, I made a joke of, around, because you could tell there was a lot of like weird judgments and stuff, but since we didn't actually use words, we weren't able to see like their little,
judgments of the rest of the world. And I was kind of like, I was telling someone, I'm like, I'm kind of glad we don't speak each other's language, because I'd have to hear a bunch of the ignorant stuff that you guys are saying behind our, and then when I said that and the translator said it to them, they all laughed really hard and they gave me a big hug, because they knew, they're like, I can tell you're talking smack, but from a loving way. So it's fine. We're all like a very close team. But the viewing someone else's lens.
Yes.
And I think this is very important right now, because I feel holding space for people to be as open as possible, even if you might not agree with it. But we want that language to come through, because when people accept your lens, then they start accepting your lens. And then that's how ecosystems grow. What are some of the things that you coach people on for that?
I coach people on primarily around listening. So a large part of, what you said, listening, how do I begin to listen with an openness and listen in such a way that my worldview is not the only worldview.
Right.
Yeah. And so I can listen, and I listen then with an openness to understand, to connect, to engage. And, the word prejudice, meaning prejudge. We all have prejudgments, biases. And when I start to live as if my judgments or prejudgments, the way that it is, then I cannot have intimacy with you.
Right.
So a part of what the kind of coaching that I do is having people begin to breathe mindfully and start to notice that who there is the other, but not like the other that's over there, but the other like distinct from the self that I call me, which is an illusion anyway, as you know. There is no self, but here in the Western world, we have to have myself.
It's in Burning Man, it's a radical self.
Really? Yes.
I need to dress like everyone else to express my radical self.
Yeah. But it's all this stuff we make it up. That's what I say, it's all interpretation, meaning radical self. And so the more I am attached to a self. So like me, I'm an African-American woman. That's one thing I say, right? This identity I'm currently living my life through. And through that, I'm living my life through a particular lens, especially here in the United States.
Yeah.
But that's not who I am.
Right.
And it's a lens. And when I can listen, you're this, can I call you a white dude?
Yeah.
Would that be okay? Yeah. I don't want to upset anybody.
I prefer white boy.
No, I say dude. I won't call you a
I'm
boy.
good at the base. You don't worry about it. You can call me anything you want.
I don't want to call you a boy. I wouldn't call anybody over 12 these days. I don't call them a boy.
It's like, you're a white boy. Hey. Yeah.
White boy. That's funny. I have a very good friend who has not hung out with a lot of Black people in his lifetime. And I could take some shots at him and he's learned to laugh.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the listening is, I want to listen how the world occurs to you.
Yeah.
And authentically, how does the world occur from that? And then you start to listen to, how does the world occur for Betty or, Alice? But in that occurrence, then something about the self disappears. And what emerges is a deep listening. And in that listening, what will show up is intimacy.
Yeah.
And then in that intimacy, it becomes a both and world, not an either or world. And in the both and world, and this is the beauty of this kind of intimacy, something can emerge that could not emerge just from me or just for you, but this womb, you hold space. Just in holding this space, something can happen. And this has been for humanity and for this planet for millions of years, billions of years, but we forget it.
Well, one of my things that I've learned, and I've carried this, so the bow, I was told a long time ago that not only bowing for respect, but you're also bowing to pour out your ideas, because you're leaving the construct of the dojo, and then you're walking back out into the world where many constructs are happening. And even though there's your construct and your lens, but there's also all of the other constructs. And so when many constructs are coming together, there is no more right or wrong. It's an amoral universe that's sitting right there, because your construct is yours and mine is mine. And if we can bow out our construct and pour it on the ground and walk in there, then we can be more open to receive others, right? And
Yes.
you know, it's kind of, I remember seeing that. I was a kid and I had a really bad month. You know, my family lost everything, and they're like, your dad's dying and this is happening. And I didn't know if we were going to be homeless or not. And I remember taking a motorcycle ride and seeing this very rich girl. And she was outside pissed, just mad. And I was like, hey, what's going on? I remember talking to her, and I was on my motorcycle. I was actually hiding from a cop, and then I saw her. It was a whole thing. And I was a little kid, and I see her, and she was just mad because they were going to be in Belize for 10 days in like their summer home, and their parents were only letting her bring 5 bathing suits, and God forbid she have to wear the same bathing suit twice, right? And what I realized was she was having a way worse day than I was. And then it made me realize it's just all perspective. And then over time of being a martial artist, like, you know, I've been choked out today. I've had, you know, a man smearing all over my face. And to some people, that's a horrible day. And to some people, that's a really wonderful day. And so it just teaches you like what these constructs and ideas and lenses are, you know, and that's, so you just kind of got to be open.
And the difficulty today, I assert, is that people have not been taught to think.
Right.
So they say their opinions become reality, because we're in a time now where anything can become reality, and that's not quite the way that it is. And I contributed to this. I want to say, you know, you can do anything you want to do, you can go anywhere you want to go, you can be anywhere you want. The transformational self-help movement.
Yeah.
It's not so.
Yeah, it's ignorant in its idealism. However, you know, and it's us expressing. It is, you know, there's how many times have you know, heard, even like, look what we're doing now. Like every time you buy anything, you get a survey. Your opinion matters. We're your opinion. If we are an 8 out of 10, what can we do to make it a 10 out of 10? Right.
Yeah.
And it's all that of letting people know that their opinion matters. And it's trying to, you know, almost predatorily, you know, teach us that our opinion is the most important thing right now. And whatever, you know.
And the downside to that is we really believe that our opinions matter and not our actions.
You might believe it.
Yeah, and not our actions. But we can lead to that, because, you know, there's some stores where I don't shop. There's some because they are not in alignment with my values and my beliefs as I see it. And so the whole thing now is what really matters.
Right.
And you had discipline as a martial artist. You had discipline with your body, how to take something, and how, you know, these practices shaped your body as you shape the practices. But if you don't have a ground of being, like I like to call it, you can just be over here, be over there. And, you know, a part of ontology and ecology is that we're all interdependent, we're all interrelated, and the interbeingness of all of life with the planet, you know, the trees, the water, the stars, and all that. Some of that's missing because we become so into things. We've even made ourselves things. We've made each other things. And this last year with the pandemic, I say it helped us to come back to our humanity.
What's important. What's important.
Yeah, being human again. Now you can have the biggest house on the hill, you can have all the money in the bank that you want, and yet you can still die. You see, it doesn't. Your wife can still divorce you.
Yeah.
All of that, or your kid can still die, or all of that happens. So what really matters? And it's
this. I tell people all the time, this table that I'm sitting on right now is my massage table, and I do kind of emotional mapping with people. And this table has taught me more than, I mean, my teachers taught me how to view and how to release my ideas and just hold space.
Yes.
And the table has taught me. And so once I learned that, then this table brought in, there's been the 10,000 hour rule has definitely been met. And I've held a lot of people in my hands, and it's taught me a lot. And as one of the best teachers has been this, because yes, I could have a billionaire, and I could have I've in 1 week had a billionaire flying on a private jet, and then literally the next day someone that was just hanging from their neck and tried to kill themselves, and they're it's like all in the same day, and literally they're both going through the same thing.
Yeah. And this is what biology, we cannot get away from this biology. No, and for so much of our teaching has been about you live in your head. No, you don't. You live in this whole biology, as you're saying, and the embodiment of our lives is occurring in a way that has us be alive. And so much of our culture now is about being dead, not being alive.
I have a question.
Please.
It's about questions. So we're on the big three. We're talking about language. So I'm thinking, okay, so if we have the conversation of assertion, and we have listening, but in order to keep the conversation going, it's like I've learned I wrote a song a long time ago called I'll give my faith to anything when I run out of questions, right?
Yes.
And the idea is I'm always trying to collect questions, and I've also been talking to people. I was working with a bunch of interrogators, and I was talking to them about even cops don't like talking to cops. No one likes talking to cops. And they were cracking up about that because they don't like talking to cops. So and I was explaining the difference between having a conversation, being interested versus interrogating. And I'd just be really interested to hear your thoughts on questions to stimulate people's thinking about themselves or their consciousness or anything like that.
Yeah. So we teach our coaches how to lead with questions.
Oh. There you go.
See there you go. So if you look at the word question, quest on.
Yeah.
Quest
on.
Yeah,
it's quest. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going on a quest of discovery, of possibility, because I'm pretty sure you heard of this. I know very little, right? If I were to draw a circle and there was a little piece of what I know, there's a little piece of what I don't know, and then there's a bigger piece of what I don't know that I don't know.
Right.
And that's where the questions are. People don't even know what questions to ask.
Right.
But once they open up a window of questioning, it can lead them so many places, and especially regarding this, this universe and human. What is a human being? And not to be fixed on that. Now, in terms of my life, if I can dwell in the questions, and one question is, what do I want to have happen with my life? Or what do I want to contribute? Yeah. Those are two different questions. What do I want for me? And what do I want to contribute?
Yeah.
And I find, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and ask the question of congruency. So I've asked people a lot of times, okay, so what do you want for you? You want to travel. Okay. But what do you want to contribute? Right. Because if you just want to travel and drink wine, you might just be going there and contribute to the local economy. But what if what you're asking of yourself that you want out of your life might be
cause and effect might put you in a position to not be able to contribute the thing that you want, right?
Yeah. And I kind of, this is how I think about it. So what gives my life meaning?
Mm-hmm.
And usually what gives meaning to one's life is what they contribute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do I want to leave this planet? Everybody's not asking that question, and it's perfectly okay, but some people are. But how do I want to? What kind of being do I want to be for my kids, and how? And something happens when we start to engage those kinds of questions, because it allows for a different kind of possibility. And then it's a possibility that a lion can't have, that a fish can't have. A fish
Mm-hmm.
is just swimming in the pond, but you look around you and go, something gets triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Something says, you know what? There's something else. What is it for me? What is it for my community? There's a young man that just graduated from my course from Africa, Ghana. He's very interesting. We have people from all over the world introduce themselves, and most of them from the United States. I'm pretty hard on people from here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, I'm here for what? For my family, for my community, for Ghana, and then he said, and for Africa. They're speaking. I want that was speaking. The way he said it, he just didn't say Africa, but he said Africa.
Right. He said
and that was, but I'm saying, but the speaking of it, and then it said something. So I knew his concerns. You see, human beings always care about something. That's what makes us human, is that we care.
Right.
Now we can take our care and turn it towards ourselves, which will make it a small care. Or we care about our families, we care about our communities, and even caring about our bodies. Everybody does not care about their body, like it's not in the foreground of caring. But so what happens then, you began to listen, and this is where listening comes in there. If you can start to listen what you care about, care for, then you can start to shape a life of meaning, a life of into a whole nother realm, because we can't be here unless we care. You take a little baby. If you took the little baby and just put it out under the tree and left it, it would die.
Yeah.
So you care for that baby, you care for the environment that you're raising the baby in. And so then our caring becomes so huge that we have access to a force that animates the entire universe, that says caring is here for all of us. Sort of like music, this. Wow.
Yeah.
When musicians are playing and they are playing together, something happens that cannot happen when they're individuals.
Yeah.
And some of them get intoxicated by that, and they end up on drugs and a whole bunch of other stuff. But there's something that takes us over when we authentically care. And that caring allows for us to become something that we cannot become without the full possibility of caring. Is that make sense?
I saw in the beginning of COVID, everyone wanted to contribute something, and we started imposing, right? Because we believe our opinion matters, right? And you see people's insecurities when you're told, like, maybe the best thing that you can contribute right now is to kind of stay in, right? But we were such a we wanted to be out there. We wanted to do things like, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I contribute? Right. And and that was an interesting thing, because it did make people, I think, reassess, am I valuable? Will I ever be valuable? Like, there was that moment where you're like, is sales really that important? And you're like, well, it is, just not now. Like, sit down, and it's okay. Like, was the Lu Ming, the great local astrologer, he'd say, sometimes compromise doesn't include you. Right. And,
I like that. I like that.
And it's not, we're not compromising at you. It's just right now, we don't need a modern dancer. You know what I mean? I know, but when we need you, show up, but maybe it's time to sit back.
And see what's being called forward.
Yeah. What are some of the things you care deeply about?
I care deeply about this planet, Gaia, Mother Earth, Pachamama, and by that I mean it's big to say, but the conditions that how we're shaping this planet for life. Can we live here if we don't have clean water, clean air, food? Right. And you know what'll happen? The poor people will suffer tremendously if we don't take care of the planet. So I care about that. I care about people's dignity and respect. I care about equality. I tend to be political in the sense of I'm an activist. I have been for my whole life.
You were Black Panther, right?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Many years ago, 18, 19, didn't know any better. It was a good thing I didn't. But but now is, shoot, when I see a guy with so many billions of dollars and so many people starving, and I go, wow, something's out of balance here. I want people to have as much money as they can possibly earn.
Yeah.
So I care about that. I care about people loving each other. I said, I'm old-fashioned in that sense. Love really does make the world go round. Genuine love. So I make a distinction between fitting in and belonging, which Brene Brown makes so beautifully. Everybody wants to belong, and everybody does belong. You see, that's the crazy thing. But we can language it so that people don't belong, and they spend their entire life trying to fit in, and then they have no happiness, no joy, because I'm always trying to fit in, and that's not workable. I care about peace on this planet. I look at what's happening in over there in the Middle East, and I go, this is 2021, and you're bombing people. Come on, dude. Let's do something else. In Africa, with the places where they're killing people, or here in the United States.
It's something that I work with a lot of people, and they love their guns, and I'm always talking to people about how I'm a martial artist, and I wish people were. I'm a martial artist, but I'm also kind of like your basic poet, songwriter kind of guy in martial arts and the study of war and all these things. It's a means to understand human nature and philosophy, but it's funny to watch people shut down and not enjoy the conversation when I talk to them about what a weapon actually represents, right? Because a weapon technically represented technology or a tool to sort of, amplify your force. But really what it is like the sword was a tool that represented a choice and a decision. And then it enhanced your decision-making process in a moment that actually had a cause and effect. So if you did it righteously without sort of understanding where you're coming from and without honor, then you oftentimes weren't allowed back in your own village, right? And then as the weapons got bigger, meaning like the, projectile weapons and all these other things, then what happened is your effect with that decision was amplified. So now I could actually harm you from many, many, many feet away. And I have to integrate that decision, right? And then over time, though, we got to the point where you just at the push of a button, you can wipe out thousands of people. And our human ability and decision-making skills, we do not possess the nervous system to integrate that level of power and decision-making. So what it does is it creates escapists, it creates demagogues, tyrants that are removing themselves from their decision-making skills, and they become tyrannical because they're overrun by the amount of decisions that are being made by their technology. Like you and I can communicate with millions of people at the click of a button. Our bodies don't understand that. It's very weird.
Yes. Yeah. And because we're removed from it, we're the thing itself. So
we don't even have to look at them.
No, look at them. These are things, disposable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, see, I think a new world is emerging, Matt. But the world can only emerge through people.
Yeah.
Right. In terms of where human beings are concerned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I might be completely wrong, but this technology, it's gotten us here to a place where now we can use it for the benefit of all.
Okay, I would like to say this for you.
What?
If I talked to a bunch of people, I sat across the table from a couple people that were going to die within the month, and they were all okay with that. They all accepted it. And then I asked them, I was like, what's most important to you? And then they all said relationships. And when we talk about technology, I always say, so what is your relationship with your technology? What is your relationship with the people in your life? So our relationships with our technology and all these things, they're slowly changing, right? We're either going to become reliant on them or it's going to just enhance our day to day. And it's up to us. Either our technology is going to remove us from our humanity, or our technology is going to give us the ability to be more human. And, we'll see.
We'll see. And we'll decide which way it goes. It's like in Space Odyssey 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Remember when HAL, the computer, it took over? But the thing about computers, and this is Fernando Flores, the man, my mentor and teacher, computers don't have the capacity to be human.
No.
But we're trying to make them.
Yeah.
We're trying to make them be human. But so relatedness, just the word relationship itself, and I know I use it a lot, but it's the relational world that we're beginning to move back into. Because the damage done to the planet was done out of our not having us be relational together.
Yeah.
It was having us, the Anthropocene, us people. We are here to control everything. We're here to control the planet. We're here to control each other, control, dominate, order, predict. And now we're taking ourselves to a place where that can't happen anymore. It might take another 100 years. I'm not sure. But I don't think this is the end. This is the last pony show for us human beings.
What about, I was just working with actually a coach, and we were doing some wrestling and I tell him that when you're doing this type of work, when you're actually on the mat, the phrase is, there's no truth according to you. Like you have to unwind, don't skip steps. It's just a conversation. And in that, the true indomitable spirit means you're not, some people mistake it for, you can't dominate me because I'm super powerful. But really, indomitable spirit means you no longer believe in domination. So if you're dominating me and you think you're dominating me, I have so many opportunities. And those opportunities don't mean I'm dominating you either. We're just literally sitting in this 50-50 world of we're sharing this moment. And all we're doing is having a conversation. I move, you move. You move, I move. And then it's kind of all we're doing. And it's funny to watch him experience it because people want to know it in theory, but like martial practice is not knowing it in theory. There's your theory. It's 1% theory, 99% practice. And you know, I really enjoy sharing that work with that guy, because he's like, man, this is all my work. I'm like, yeah, but it's all of it is coming together in a real time.
That's right.
Illustration. So what I ask of you is, if our actions do speak louder than words, and yes, we're just communicating with words, whether it's a phone call, still do this, or whether it's an email, but still those people that we're working with are still making actions. So you were talking about the technology, and if it's removing us from our humanity or whatever, it just made me start thinking, like, yeah, what are they asserting by making all of these things that are trying to make our life easier? What do you think about?
Well, that's the evolution. So before we had airplanes, when people would ride across the country in wagons, they had to relate to each other. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
But now we want time. So time and speed. Time, speed, and money runs us here.
Yeah.
And so now, not being trapped by that. That's why I like the work of mindfulness and what you're doing, because somatically, we're beginning to learn that our biology is not a machine that's go, 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 go all the time. So with the Soma, we also start to recognize that there's an animating force in this universe. There's a force that animates my body, not me like a self called Bettie Spruill, but this force. And to tap into that, to become one with it. It's an old statement, to become one with that force.
Yeah.
It opens up different realities, different possibilities, where life is not so much about getting.
Yeah.
It's about, givers. What is it? Givers give, and receiving becomes one and the same. It's like in martial arts, I would believe, or in music, it's one and the same. But because we've separated ourselves, and we don't live in a non-dual state of consciousness, even if we do, then we're fighting with ourselves, trying to get somewhere, trying to do something, try to be something that you already are. But it happens, what you said, through practice. Yeah. Now, you want to know my favorite sport, all-time favorite sport, which I'm so excited about: basketball.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, and I thought
they're amazing.
I know. I thought my guy, the Warriors, were out. I thought Stephon had blown it for the whole year, but they came back. And I said, wow. But it wasn't because he was wishing or hoping. It was the embodiment of his practices.
Yeah.
And what you teach me, because being a basketball player is sort of like being a warrior. You have to embody the practices, and you embody them enough so that when it's time to move, you can just move. You don't have to think about it. But the other thing too, Matt, I find is that we live in a McDonald's world where you drive up to one window, you order the food, and then you go. That's it. But the practice, and that's the joy of, that's one of the joys of life. It's not so much what you're going to get from the practice, and that counts, but the practicing of the practice. Yeah.
Okay. I remember, so the McDonald's metaphor makes me think, like, yes, we do live in a McDonald's world in a couple ways. The other thing that we think in the McDonald's world is, we think just because it's the most popular, it's the best. I always say McDonald's is a very popular hamburger, but it is not the best hamburger. You know what I mean? Like, that's our other delusion, right? We think it's popular, it's the best. We're not honoring barrier to entry. Like, what is it? Like, there's a reason why the best things, not everyone's invited, because there's a barrier to entry. And are we willing to invite that practice and that work into paying the admission? What does the Stoics used to say? If you haven't been invited to the room, it's because you haven't paid admission yet.
Ooh, I like that.
And that blew my mind when I was a kid, because I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason why I'm not playing Carnegie Hall. I haven't paid admission. I haven't done the time.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Practice, 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 but the right practices. You see, Stefan
Yeah.
is just not out there practicing any old thing. There are certain
Right.
practices that he's embodying, and that's why he
Yeah.
has a coach. See, it's a wonderful thing
Yeah.
about having a coach, a mentor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who, okay. So you do like basketball. So it's all right. You've given us a lot today. Are there three things? So if you were in the big three, if there were like three things that you'd tell people to be, that could really just help our languaging with each other, what would like three little things be?
I would say find in your languaging ways to appreciate life,
Okay.
because that happens. And if you're going through life complaining,
Mm-hmm.
the universe will give you something to complain about.
Right. Right.
That's the nature
You
of it.
get what
That's
you
the
want. Yeah.
languaging. Yeah. But to appreciate, and then the other to appreciate, then the other thing, because we do so much of this that you and I are doing,
Mm-hmm.
find time to take your shoes off and just go stand on the ground, if not 2 or 3 minutes, and feel the vibrancy, the energy, the aliveness of the earth, and know that you're one with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the third thing I would say is notice your self assessments.
Mm.
Notice them in a way where this metaphor, like become the sky instead of the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the clouds, all the clouds, always they come and they go. This thought and this, but once you become the cloud and you can hold space for the clouds,
Mm-hmm.
then you don't identify yourself as your characterizations, your assessments. You notice them. Because, and the other thing too, unless you have clouds, you can't have rain,
Yeah.
as far as you know. So then, what are these clouds? And notice and stop the self attack. So that's what I would say. And how do you do that? Practice. Go find Matt's work that you do, and and
Go find Betty.
but we have a saying that people are whole, perfect, and complete.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that culturally we've been taught that we're not.
Yeah.
Gone all the way back through religion. You got to do this to be whole, but you're already whole. And this force that is the creator of all life, of which we are, is perfect, and we are perfect with it. So that's what I would tell people: find a community where you can, and this is a thing of love, to really love yourself so much that you can't help but love someone else.
You know
And
that phrase, yeah, don't get smarter because you think you're stupid.
yeah, oh,
Get smarter just because it makes you, get smarter because you want to, not because you think you're stupid. Like learn to dance better because you want to, I mean, there's those things. Yeah.
Oh, you're very good, Matt. This has been great. It is.
I'm so glad we got to do this.
I am
That was
too.
Betty. That was
Thank
Betty
you.
Spruill.
Well, thank you so very much.
I'm a big fan. This is only our second interaction, but I've heard too much about you, and yeah.
Yeah. People are amazing. I was telling someone just the other day, I've worked with thousands of people all over the world, and I maybe only met 5 who I considered really, really bad people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But overall, at the very core of us human beings is goodness. So I take the Buddhist is goodness, and we need each other to draw that forth.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Matt. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And anytime you want to drop some knowledge on me, I'm here. Good luck on your move to North Carolina. Oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, we have to talk again, especially when you get to North Carolina.
The tacos aren't as good out there, but I think you'll make it.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be hard to find
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a big Latino community now.
Yeah. Do you have a proper playlist to get you across? Are you driving or are you flying?
Oh, flying. Oh,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
I,
All right, just checking.
no.
I was gonna say if you need to, we'll send you some playlists.
Send me a playlist. I listen to
Yeah,
music all the time.
Yeah,
But
yeah. What are you
I'm
into?
gonna let's see. I like jazz.
Okay.
Soft jazz. I like uh, oh, Marvin Gaye. I'm
Oh
still a
yeah,
Motown woman.
yeah.
I have a lot of friends from Motown, and I like upbeat music. I mean, music with a message, and I like dance music. I don't dance as much as I used to,
Mm-hmm.
but I love some good, dance music. What else do I like? I like all music. I even like country western now.
Yeah.
Some good
The good,
stuff.
and when it's good, it's good. As I tell
Mm.
everyone, like good is good.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a reason why even a lot of Motown guys. I mean, Ray Charles, he was so into country music.
yeah.
I mean, because those guys back then, I mean, it's just great songwriting is great
Mm.
songwriting.
Yeah, Lionel Richie crossed
Oh,
over a little bit.
yeah, he did.
I like classical music. I
Mm-hmm.
like new age stuff for meditation.
Yeah.
With the chimes and the bowls
You're the second person. I'm my whole thing right now is I always have singing bowls and crystal bowls going on in the background. That's always, they're the best.
Yes. So when I sit to write, I get my bowls and
Yeah.
my my bottle of water and just be present. It helps me to be present.
Yeah, they're amazing, right? Like they're
Yeah.
just so atonal and they just kind of break up. It's like wind chimes, and I have all these birds outside, so it's like all the birds singing, and then the bowls just kind of are always on in the background.
Yeah, and how could you not be magnificent with all of that? There's a song. There's so much magnificence. Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, thank you.
Thank you very much. Where can we find you? I'm going to assume idealcoachingglobal.com.
Yeah, idealcoachingglobal.com. Yes.
Yeah.
That'll be
All
great.
right.
And where can I find you? You're going to send me something where I can find you.
Yeah. You can always find me at Total BS Wellness. I named it Total BS Wellness due to the practice thing, because I was around so many people when I moved to the Bay Area, and people were like, oh, you do Qigong, you do yoga. And I learned that everyone out here knows 1,000 times more than I'll ever know. But then when it came time to practice,
no,
I would say it's all BS if you're not showing up and practicing. Like too much reading, too much in the head, too much bypass through spirituality, too much bypass through over metricing, and too much study. When really it's just like, I tell people yoga and these practices were oftentimes created by illiterate, poor people with a lot of time on their hands, because they had a struggle and a life of suffering and needed to thrive and find the beauty in that. And then when I came out here, I was like, y'all know too damn much. And so Total BS stands for Total Balancing Sequence, but it also stands for it's all bullshit if you don't practice. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Well, I have to have you come and talk to my group.
Oh, anytime.
That's what I tell them.
Yeah.
If you don't practice the practices of coaching, you're going to be doing something else. And what are the practices? One of the things we talked about, listening, asking meaningful questions, thinking that what people should be doing, and how they should live their life. So, but your job is to evoke, to call forth from them their own wisdom, their own genius about their life. And that takes practice.
When I came out here, I worked for some activist groups, and I kind of stopped because I was reminding them they were working with children. And I was like, these 7-year-olds didn't know they were oppressed and that the system was against them until your white boy do-gooder ass showed up. And I was telling them, I'm like, stop using your guilt. I'm like, they're brown and poor. That's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Who cares? And what used to drive me crazy was when I would go in there, because I just remember being a kid
and hearing these things that my brain didn't understand the intricacies of the litigious system that gave me outs. Like, so I remember the day just being, 10 years old and hearing like, we're bankrupt. And I remember coming home and the cars were gone. And my parents said, well, we're declaring bankruptcy. And to me, I didn't know about Chapter 11 and debt relief. I knew that in Monopoly, you're out of the game. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
And so I would tell these people, like, you have to be careful with the words that you use around these young people. You can't go to a child when they're 6 years old, 7 years old, and tell them that the system that they're in is against them, because their parents are going to make them show up to it every day.
So very good, Matt.
And I was like, stop doing that. And I was one of those kids where if a do-gooder showed up, I'm probably going to steal your car. You know what I mean? I'm probably going to start, you know what I mean? We're going to terrorize, like no one likes a do-gooder. You know what I mean? Treat all these people with respect and equality, and just say, hey, maybe you had a blind spot to some of the resources that are available to you. And we have a blind spot to what you can contribute to our future.
Yes, that's very good. Thank you.
So yeah,
that fits right in with a paper I'm writing for a speech I'm giving. To ask people to become anti-racist. And I found myself as I was walking and thinking about it, I want to go, pow, pow. I said, no, that's not what you want to do. You're being a terrorist about becoming anti-racist. So,
Just take a second and see what we've all, I did a mediation with these, I'll send you this course that I did. I was telling the story about this coal miner with this environmentalists, and they were talking about, we need to go solar and shut the coal plants down. And these guys can't feed their families. And I was like, well, instead of yelling at them, telling them that they're wrong, why don't you see the fact that coal mines have engineers, contractors, they have electricians, they have all these people that can also contribute to the future of solar. And if you could see them for that, they'll stop saying the stupid, ignorant things they're doing just to protect their jobs. And it brought everyone into a conversation as opposed to just pointing fingers. And it's really weird to see that happen. Contribution.
It's another thing. How can you listen to each other? And with the intention, what to say if we can get people in the same room and they can sit and breathe, and then it makes a difference. Thank you so much, Matt.
You're born for this.